Good afternoon to all the viewers and welcome back to ICCA Live, World-Class Culinary Online. Today, we have the start of a brand new series of webinars on coffee, from bean to cup. And the first episode is on knowing all about your coffee. I will now hand over to our host, Shanaz Raja, Director of Courses at the ICCA Dubai. Over to you, Shanaz.
My mic wasn't on. Thank you, Karun. And this time it's something completely different. It's coffee. This set of webinars will take you through from bean to cup and will help you make the right choice when you order your next cup of coffee. And hopefully will ignite a passion within you to learn more about this amazing pick me up beverage and how to get the best out of it. And now a brief introduction on Gihan Veerasinghe, barista instructor here at the ICCA in Dubai, an international award-winning champion barista with over 20 years in this field and 12 years out of this as a trainer with 4,000 baristas to his credit. And on the lighter side, when he's not making coffee, he makes dogs. And he has not one or two, but 16 of those little creatures. So if you do the course at ICCA, not only will you get to learn coffee making skills, but during break time, you will get some tips on dog rearing too. We have a long way to go today into the world of coffee. So without further ado, over to you, Gihan.
Thank you very much, Shanaz, for that wonderful introduction and touching about my dogs as well. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us for our first webinar. So today is episode 1. So today we'll be talking all about the coffee bean. So how to choose your coffee, what you should look like, the key areas, what you should look for when you're buying the coffee, and how the characters change according to the different coffees. So let's start with understanding what coffee is. So coffee is a psychoactive drug. So a lot of people like to be stimulant. They like that energy to go on. So this happened because of the caffeine what you get from coffee. So in worldwide annually, people consume around 130 million kilos of coffee. So how everything started? This started in a place called Ethiopia back in 850 AD. So there's a funny story behind this as well. So actually coffee was discovered by a goat herder. His name was Khaldi. So Khaldi went with his goats to the mountains and saw the goats eating these red cherries. So after eating the cherries, because of the caffeine, the goats start acting very weird. They was very hype. They was very energetic. So Khaldi got worried. So in 850 AD, there was no laboratories to check what this red cherry is. So what Khaldi did, he went back to the monks. So he went to the village, gave it to the monks and said, okay, my goats ate these cherries and they was very frisky. They was acting very weird. So I'm scared. Will something happen to my goats? So the monks put the cherries into the water. They start boiling it and they start drinking the water. So then they found out that this cherry boiled water keep them alert and it keep them alive at night. So later on they was using it for late night mass. So in the beginning the coffee was only between some people. They was very secretive and it was used only in the religious ceremonies. But looking at now 2020, the coffee have become the second largest commodity in the world. So it's second only to oil. And I'm sure most of you know as well, you'll be paying 3 or 4 times more for a cup of coffee than for the liter of petrol you pay. So this is how big the business is. And another thing about coffee is, any coffee you buy, you'll be average paying anything from 15 to 20 dirhams. And the top line profit margins in coffee can hit 90%. So that's why a lot of people trying to be into the coffee business. That's why people trying to understand about the barista skills. That's why they want to start open up coffee shops. So this is a perfect platform for you to start with. So let's get into coffee. So coffee doesn't grow everywhere in the world. It grows only in certain parts of the world. So to be very precise, it grows 25 degrees north and 25 degrees south from the equator. And this area called the bean belt. So roughly there's around 70 countries falls in this area. There's some parts of America, some parts of Africa, and some parts of Asia. The largest coffee producer in the world up to now, today, this moment, is Brazil. They produce 1/3 of the world production. And the other side of Brazil is they produce not only Arabica, they produce Robusta as well. And Brazil is second in Robusta production only for Vietnam. So the largest Robusta producer in the world is Vietnam, and coffee as a general product, Brazil is the leading #1 for so many years. So Brazil is the largest coffee producer. So now let's go to see how the coffee was, you take care of coffee and how you grow coffee. So any coffee, as any other plant, between 3 to 6 months, it will be staying in a nursery as that small coffee plant. So the farmers have to look after day and night to make sure that plant is having the right nutrition it needs. So after 6 months, roughly, it goes to the farm, the big, brighter world. So once it goes to the farm, after 3 to 5 years, depends on the variety or the species, it will start giving cherries. So coffees from blossom to cherry, it can take anything from 8 months to 12 months, depends on the variety. So once from the blossom it starts being cherries, the first step is you have to harvest the coffee. So mainly there have been 3 different methods how people harvest coffee globally. So the first method, or the best method, is selective picking coffee. So what happened in this method is the workers or the farmers, they go to the coffee plant and they start picking up only the bright red cherries. So the best cherries from the tree. So in this way, what happened? You leave the unmatured cherries, you leave the green cherries, you leave the cherries what's not good for the consumption, or what they think that it will make some bad taste into the end cup. So in this way, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money, but always you get the best product. You get the best coffee cherries in your baskets. Take a lot of time and money, but the #1 method. Second method is strip picking. So what the workers do, they go to the plants again and they strip all the coffee beans. So you get a mix of the green beans, the red beans, the yellow beans, some beans what has some insect bites. So all these end up in the basket. So in this method, what happens, once you strip all the coffees, you have to put some extra time on sorting it out. So you have to remove the unmatured beans. You have to remove the beans what has any insect bites. So this faster than selective picking, but again in sorting out it takes some time. And then the commercial farmers who have 100 hectares, 500 hectares of coffee land, they use the method called mechanical harvesting. So in mechanical harvesting, they use machines to harvest coffee. So in this method, when harvest, you get not only coffee beans, you get the leaves, you get the branches, you get the stones, you get the bird nest, you get the bird eggs. Everything can end up, and then they sort this out to get the coffee cherries, then to go to the next process. So now we will be going to our first poll. You will have the questions in your screen, and in few seconds we'll be addressing your answers. So now after harvesting the coffee, it's not going to magically appear in your cup. It needs a lot of processing. So the first thing, once you harvest the coffees, you have to get rid of the skin. So coffee has 7 layers. So there's 5 layers is skin and 2 layers count as the coffee bean. So for this, there's 3 processes what followed globally. Actually, there's around 5, but I'll discuss around 3 main methods. So the first method, what's very old, have been using for so many years. Even my grandmother was used to use this processing method, what called natural process or dry process. So what you do, you take your coffee cherries and you dry it in the sun. So in a commercial environment, this will be done in either concrete patios or in high-rise Indian beds. So this might sound easy, but it's not that easy because it takes a lot of time and effort to get the right moisture content in the coffee. So the average moisture content in coffee once it's green bean stage, it should be anything from 9 to 13%. So the farmers and workers have to make sure their coffee beans has the right moisture content. If you don't maintain the right moisture content, you will not be able to sell your coffee beans. So what they do, once they put the coffee into the sun, they will have to go in the morning, rake it, change it the side, then again rake it, put it into other side. They have to get a consistent dry out coffee beans, but always has that perfect moisture content. So if you don't rake it out and spread it out, what happens is there can be some fungi building between the coffee beans. So that's going to affect the price of the coffee and it's going to affect the end cup. So that's the first method, that's natural process, or it called dry process. The second process is called wash process, or it called wet process. So what happened in this process is you pass the coffee through a pulping machine. So the pulping machine, it will pop the skin. Then you take those green beans and then you soak it in water. So what you expect by this is you trying to remove the mucilage. So maybe now you were thinking what's the mucilage is. Coffee cherry, it has after the inside the skin there's a sweet layer. It's like a gluey substance what's really sweet. So before drying out, they remove this mucilage. So they soak it in water and they wash it. Some farmers, they wash it for 3 times, some wash for 2 times, and actually it depends on how much water you have. So once you wash the mucilage, it's easy for them to dry. So even this method, it will take anything from 3 to 4 weeks, depends on the weather condition and how much sun you have. So this is called the wet method. So this was a well-known process for past 15, 20 years. But in recent history, there have been some new techniques farmers have adopted to get more flavor into the coffee. So maybe some of you familiar with the process called honey process. So honey process, personally, I have heard in 3 different colors. I have heard black, red, and yellow. So how this works, it's very similar to the wet process, but there is a small difference. So the difference is, same as the wash process, it goes to a pulping machine. But the difference here is, you don't wash them. You leave the coffee with the mucilage. So you let it dry with mucilage, but you pile up the coffee bean so that fermentation stage happens and it adds more flavor into the coffee. And during this process, the bean absorbs all that mucilage into the bean and it gives some bright flavors into the coffee. So according to the color, this pile up time, it will change. If you want a black honey process, you will pile up and leave it for slightly longer time to happen that fermentation process. If you want yellow honey, you will straight away dry it out without piling it up. And depends on the processing method, it can change the flavor of coffee as well. So if we take first the natural process, personally my favorite, it has a very nice sweetness, very high sweetness. It has a very low acidity and it gives a very good body to the coffee. So personally, the coffee what I drink, I like to choose always the natural process coffee. So as I said in the beginning, this session is more about trying to help you out to buy the perfect coffee bean. So for me, the favorite is natural process. It might be your cup as well, because it has the perfect sweetness, it has a very less acidity, and it has a perfect body. The second process is wash process. So what happens if you buy wash process coffee beans? Wash process coffee beans has a slightly less sweetness comparing to the natural process. It has a very high acidity and it has a slightly lower body comparing to the natural process. It's not a bad coffee, it's a good coffee, but it depends on what stage or how you're going to roast it or for which purpose you use the coffee beans. Then if we talk about the honey processed coffee, the black honey or the yellow honey or the red honey. These, a lot of people I have seen, they use this for competitions. So this doesn't happen in very large scale. Always farmers will be using only some certain parts of beans or a little bit of beans to do a honey process or a black honey process. Has some very distinguished flavors comparing to the wash process and the natural process. So the black honey is very near to the natural process, but it will still have a slightly less sweetness and body comparing to the natural process. And the yellow honey is the nearest to the wash, but still it will have more brighter flavors. It will have more sweetness and more body comparing to the wash process. So now we'll be going through a quick interval, not long, 60 seconds. Don't go anywhere. I'll see you in 60 seconds.
But Gihan, before we leave them for the interval for 60 seconds, we need to answer their poll. So they've chosen, yes, where was Arabica coffee discovered?
How did we do in the poll?
Yes, exactly. Majority of them have come up with Ethiopia, and then a few people Brazil and a few Vietnam. So Ethiopia is the right answer. And indeed, and now we are going
58%.
Yes, yes. Yeah. You were so busy teaching that. Yeah, you were so busy earnestly teaching, I couldn't interrupt you. So anyway, now we go for the video. Yeah.
Okay. My bad. Sorry about that. Welcome back. It was not long, it was just 60 seconds. Hope you had some water, some coffee, refresh yourself. So now we'll see what are the other characters or what are the main fundamentals can change the flavors of coffee. So we was talking about, if you joined just now, so far we talk about the harvesting method, we talk about the processing method. So now we're going to discuss about how the flavor changed according to the height where it grown or the latitude. So if you look at coffee, what grown anything around 2,500 feet from the sea level. This coffee, it has some earthy flavors, and most of these coffees will be used for blending. So if you thinking what's blending, we'll be answering that in a very short moment. So this coffee is used for blends. Then if you look at coffee beans, what grown at around 3,000 feet from the sea level. This coffee has a less sweetness and less acidity. So it's not that exciting. It has that flavor, but still it's not the top. But again, it depends on which purpose you use their coffee beans for. Then there's medium latitude where you look around 4,000 feet from the sea level. This coffee has some bright sweetness. It has some good acidity. It has some chocolate note. It has some nutty notes. So these coffees are really good, but there's better coffees what will work much better in a manual brew, or if I say a V60 or a Chemex. So at this stage, if you're wondering, okay, what is a V60, what is a Chemex, what is a siphon, don't worry. Today's session is about how to choose your coffee beans, and next week we'll be seeing how to brew the perfect coffee. So getting back to 4,000 feet, so that's the higher latitude coffee, but high grown coffee. You will get some perfect notes like winey, some fruity notes, some floral aromas. So these are the coffee people dying to drink. This has some amazing flavors what you will not expect from coffee. Because a lot of people think that coffee is just something black, something bitter, something strong, and something what hits you up. No, coffee has more. Coffee is something like wine. If you learn the art of appreciating it, you will see how this different works, how the high altitude coffee has those bright fruity notes with the floral aromas, and how the low grown coffee has some different aromas and what has a high caffeine. So now at this point, I will tell you about the main two coffee bean varieties. There's a lot of coffee bean varieties, and there's some coffee what even we not have discovered in the jungles in Ethiopia. But a lot of people know about Arabica and Robusta because this was the coffee what was stolen from Yemen by Dutch, and they start growing it in their colonies. So this is the main two coffees went to Sumatra, Java, Brazil, Vietnam, Cuba, all these countries. So a lot of people familiar with Arabica and Robusta. So if you see here, let me try to show it. This is some Robusta beans, and this is some Arabica beans. So if you maybe you're wondering looking at the screen, for me it looked the same. For me as well, it looked the same, but there's a slight difference. The difference is Arabica being slightly bigger in size, and it got rounded tip, so it looked like an egg. And if you see in the center, there's a S kind of cut. So visually, Arabica beans is slightly bigger and got rounded tips. Robusta, on the other hand, it's slightly smaller. It's more of round in shape, and it gets a center cut what's right in the middle. So visually, these are some simple indication you'll know how the Arabica looks like and how the Robusta look like. But when it comes to coffee, it's not about the looks, it's about the taste. So character-wise, this has a very big difference. So Robusta is known for its body, enhanced the crema, it has more caffeine. And the Arabica is, on the other hand, it's more of a premium bean. It has high quality. A lot of people run behind the perfect Arabica. Me personally, if someone calls me and say that, okay, I have a 90 plus in Abu Dhabi, I would just jump into my car and run, go have that coffee. So coffee is that great, and it can be that addictive, and it's something like wine, or it's even more than wine. So coming back to Arabica, it has a bright sweetness, it has a very good acidity, and it has caffeine. But when it comes to caffeine, if you remember, I said people drink coffee for caffeine. That's what you put into your system. That's what keeps you going. That's what gives you energy, or you think it gives you energy. So you like to be stimulant. So caffeine wise, Arabica has around 0.8 to 1.5% caffeine. Robusta has twice the caffeine than the Arabica. So Robusta bean roughly has around 1.7 to 3.5% of caffeine. So if you are a caffeine freak, you know which coffee to choose. So if you go to Italy, in Sicily, there are some people who drinks 100% Robusta blends. So that's really full caffeine. So these are the main two different in Arabica and Robustas flavor wise. If I add a little bit more, again, Arabica was discovered in Ethiopia, and Robusta was discovered in Congo. So the origins of Robusta is Congo and Arabica is Ethiopia. But right now, the largest Robusta producer in the world is Vietnam. So now we'll look at how the coffee next journey. So you can choose Arabica or Robusta. Then next step is you will be roasting coffee. So before roasting coffee, what happens? People either choose single origin to roast, or either people blend the coffee before roasting. So maybe now you're wondering, okay, what is a single origin or what is a blend? The answer is very simple. The answer is in the word. So single origin is some certain coffee what came from either one part of the world. It can be from one place. maybe it come from Panama, maybe it's from the city of Geisha in Ethiopia. So, or it can be from a farm. So coffee, it's a very similar to wine as a plant. So the flavor can change according to the elevation, the soil conditions, the rainfall, the age of the tree, when it start flowering, when it was harvested. All these things can change the flavor. It can make a big difference in the end cup. So single origin, it can be from a single farm, and if you go even more deeper, you will see some coffees, okay, single origin from this farm, from this micro lot. So if I'm a farmer who has 50 hectares, all my 50 hectares is not going to be in the same elevation. It's not going to be in the, it's not the same soil conditions. So even in the same farm, some coffees will have different flavors than other coffees. So as roasters, what people do is they go look for these coffees. They try to see that, okay, this elevation, which flavor the coffee brings to my cup. This soil conditions, which flavor it brings to my cup. So roasters are people who goes everywhere around the world looking for that perfect bean. So these people, they bring the single origin coffee, and their highest priority is to keep that original flavors in the coffee when they bought. Sorry. So if I buy some coffee from Ethiopia what has some very winey, blackcurrant, pineapple, rock fruit flavors, as a roaster, my priority will be, after roasting, how can I keep those original flavors in my bean? So once they bring the coffee beans, they will be making sure to roast to really keep those original flavors. The reason is, if I go to Ethiopia or Kenya, and if I buy a high-grown coffee for a very higher price, and if I come roast it, and if I don't find any of those winey flavors or the spicy notes or that fruity flavors what I found in the origin, I have just bought the coffee and I have killed it. So roasters always roast single origin coffee to slightly lighter color to keep the original flavors. So basically, this how it would look like. If you see here, it's not very dark, it's not very oily, it's golden brown, but there's not much coffee oils have come out. Then let's go for blends. So blends are mix of different types of coffees. So this can be done by some people, they blend only Arabica. So they try 2-3 different types of Arabicas, they put together, they roast. So mainly the blends used for espresso. So when it says espresso, it's not only espresso. So that cappuccino what you drink in the morning in your favorite coffee shop, or the flat white you die for, or the latte what you drink every day in the morning, these coffees made from the espresso. So once you have the perfect espresso, all this espresso is going to enhance your cappuccino or latte or flat white. So the key is getting the espresso blend right. So the roasters always choose the right flavors, the right coffees, the right characters to make sure that espresso has that right intensity, it has that right caffeine kick. It really gives that balanced flavor to enhance the flavor of milk. So they always go for a slightly darker roast. So dark roast bring out some chocolate notes, some caramel notes, some nutty notes. So this depends on, again, the origin and the type of coffee beans used. So for a really good espresso, you have to get that perfect balance out of those coffee beans. So if you see a blend, it looks slightly darker. Let me try to show the difference in my two hands. So if you see here, that's single origin, not much of oil, and that's a blend but slightly darker. So at this stage, if you're thinking about, thank you BJ, let me just have some water. Sorry. So if we come to this stage, when it comes to a single origin, it doesn't have much oils out. So what happened here, single origin coffee has that way will lose the flavors much faster. The reason is it not have extract all these oils out of the bean, so it's slightly drier from outside. It's easy to react with oxygens, so it will lose flavors slightly faster than a blend. But if you look at a blend, that oil have come out, so it works as a protected layer in the bean. So once you bring home and grind the coffee, still it will have a lot of flavors in. Let me tell you another key point here at coffee when it's roasting. So coffee goes to 1500 to 1600 chemical reactions during the roasting process. So there's a lot of flavors, there's a lot of fighting going on, so to extract those flavors or to release those flavors. So in a darker roast, that oiliness always helps to keep those natural flavors locked in comparing to a single blend. Now if I go through the roasting phase, the first bit of roasting or the first phase of roasting is called dehydration. So if you remember, like 7-8 minutes back, I was saying about the moisture content of the green bean. So the moisture content of the green bean is 9 to 13%. So when it comes to that roasting stage where the roasters preheat the drum and release the coffee beans in, there's the turning point where the temperature start changing. So the first phase is the dehydration. So the roast or the beans have to get rid of the moisture content of the coffee bean. So if you see here, you can get that. You can see the beans start changing its color. So the bean start green. Then once it start losing the moisture, it slightly change the color. And if you see here, that means it have got rid of all the moisture content. It have passed the caramelizing stage, and it have start developing the flavor. So according to the roast process, this can take different times. It can take 10 minutes. It can take 12 minutes. It depends on which coffee the roaster roasts, which flavors he is trying to keep, or which purpose they will use the coffee for. So now we'll be going for our second poll. And what do you?
So Gihan, before you go forward this time, we will look at the answers.
Yes,
yeah?
I'm here. I'm not going anywhere this time.
Yes, absolutely. So what country is the largest producer of coffee? 60% of the people say it's Brazil. 25% say it's Vietnam, and the rest say it's Ethiopia.
I see 62%. So we have a 4% growth rate this time. So people have been listening more this time. So that's good.
Yeah. So it's Brazil. Brazil.
Yes, the correct answer is Brazil. Still today, the largest coffee producer in the world is Brazil. Sorry. And please, if you have any questions, please send all your questions. We're ready to answer. I will be happily answering them. And now we're going through the most important part of the day. What you should look for when you buy coffee beans, and the whole purpose of this bit was to help you out on buying coffee beans. So when you go to buy coffee beans, maybe you're going to your local coffee shop, maybe you're going for a local roaster, maybe you going to your local supermarket. So when you go to the supermarket, you will see big stacks of coffee. Comes in different colors, different shapes, different size, different packaging. Looks doesn't matter, it's about the taste. So taste, when it comes to taste, when you're choosing your coffee, look for the origin, look for the elevation, look for the processing method. This will give you some indication what's coffee to buy. But the first thing should be in your mind is when you're buying coffee, you should know how you make the coffee. So basically, you should know what's your brewing method. So if you're buying your coffee to do a manual brew, maybe you're doing a French press, because every house you find a French press. Or maybe you doing a V60, maybe you're doing a Chemex, maybe you're doing a siphon, maybe you're doing an AeroPress. So all these falls on manual brewing. So if you're doing a manual brewing, you have control over your brewing methods. You have control over your coffee to water ratio. You have control over your water temperature. You have control over your brewing time. So then always go for a single origin, because you know which flavors the coffee has and you have more control over your extraction. So if you're brewing manual brew coffee, if you're doing a French press, a Chemex, a Kalita, always go for a single origin high grown coffee where you will really enjoy. If you have an espresso machine at home, and if you are that typical cappuccino drink or a latte drink or a flat white drinker, you would like a bold flavor, you like that rich coffee flavor, you like that caffeine kick, you like to wake up in the morning, so you always will prefer a espresso blend. So espresso blend can come in two types again. It can be 100% Arabica blend, or it can be a blend of Arabica and Robusta. In my 20 years of experience, I have seen 100% Arabica blends work very well with cold coffee. So if you want to make iced caramel latte at home, or if that's the coffee you drink, or if that's your cup of coffee, always you will prefer 100% Arabica blend. If you are that bold person who drinks espresso in the morning or Americano in the morning, you will prefer a blend of Arabica and Robusta. So look for a coffee what has Robusta. To make it much easier, most of the Italian espresso blends has little bit of Robusta into it. So for you, it's about which ratio you choose. So they have in different ratios. They have 50-50, that's 50% Arabica, 50% Robusta. They have 60-40, they have 20-80, so they have different range. So know your brewing method before you buy coffee. Number two, or tip number two, buy only small bags. Don't buy 1 kilo bag, because once coffee is roasted and once you open the bag, nothing is going to stop the coffee losing its flavors and aromas. Nothing can stop at all. So always buy coffee what's good enough for 1 week or 10 days, where you can at least finish it faster than it lose all the flavors. So always go for smaller bags. Number three, never buy ground coffee. If you have any ground coffee in your cupboards, in your fridge, in your freezer, do me a favor. You can use it as a scrub. It works very well. Or you can put it in your plants. You can put it in your chili plant or tomato plant. It will help on giving good fruits. For anything else, ground coffee, for me, it's a big no, because ground coffee lose flavor 10 times faster than coffee beans. So it's not going to have any flavor, but for sure it will give you the color and it will give some slight coffee flavors, nothing much. So if you're looking for that real coffee kick, if you're looking for those real flavors, don't buy the ground coffee beans. And when you're buying coffee beans, there are some beautiful people called baristas who are always ready to help you. Go to your barista, tell that, okay, I'm looking for a manual brew coffee. They will always tell you which coffee fits you. Tell them that, okay, I have an espresso machine. I like to drink espressos. I drink cappuccino. So which blend will help me? So always they will suggest you the best coffee they have, because barista's job is to make sure all their customers have the perfect cup of coffee. So always they will be helping you out. Then when it comes to shelf life, different packaging comes in different shelf life. You will see anything from 1 year to 2 years to 5 years, depends on the coffee beans you buy. So that means it's not going to be best for the whole year. That means far as it's in the bag, it will be okay to drink. But the problem is once you open the bag. So let me touch on some points on the freshness of the coffee and how it affects. So if you are an espresso drinker, don't buy very fresh coffee beans. So because soon as it's roasted, if you try to make espresso after 3 days, 4 days, it's not going to be the best. The reason is that I was saying that there it goes to 1500, 1600 chemical reactions. So still there can be some carbon dioxide there. It can be some flavors still there. What will give you a cup but has a slight acidity. It will give you a sparkling water kind of taste. So it's not very good flavor to have in your espresso. But if you are a manual brewing coffee drinker, if you're having a V60 Chemex, it will always work the coffee if it's fresh. So if you're an espresso drinker, don't buy coffee beans what fresh just 4 days after. Buy it, it's okay, but don't try to make espresso. Just hold it for another 3-4 days so you can get the best flavor out of coffee beans. So I hope that this helped you on choosing your coffee beans. So go to your nearest roaster or go to your nearest coffee shop. Explain them which coffee you drink. Buy your coffee, but don't buy too much. Get little. So we'll meet next week and we'll see how to brew the perfect cup of coffee. So we'll be discussing about the coffee to water ratio. We'll be discussing about the water quality and the water temperature. We'll be talking about the grind size for different filtration systems or with different brewing methods, which grind size you have to follow, and according to the grind size, what brewing time or what contact time you're looking for. So that's it for today, and now I'm ready to take any questions from the audience. Shenaz, do we have any questions? Shenaz, any questions? Okay, it seems like we don't have any questions, but you're still not late. You can write to us on ICCA. You can always call us. You can visit our social media platforms, and we're always here to help you. And please, if you have any questions even after this, we always here to help you and support you. And I'll see you next week to brew the perfect cup of coffee. Over to you, Shenaz. It seems like we have a small technical glitch. I don't hear anything what you're saying. Is there any questions? It seems like your mic is off. Our live webinar and hope to see you next week. Please make sure you bring your games.